Hi, this is Mashnu, and here is a game that I played in the second round of the Moira tournament. The third round is going to be next Friday, and that's the last round because we play in these small groups of 4 players in an all-play-all system. So my first round was a draw, and I won the second game, and that's this one. I was playing black, and my opponent started with d4, knight f6, c4, e6, knight c3, and then I played c5 to enter into a modern Benoni, and he accepted that challenge by playing d5. I took on d5, took back with the c pawn, and now d6, e4, g6, wanted to place the bishop on g7 on this beautiful dark squares diagonal. Knight to f3, bishop g7, bishop to d3, castle, castle, and then a6, trying to continue with b5, and then the standard answer of white is a4 to prevent b5. The bishop goes to g4. The light square bishop is always a kind of a problem for black in this Benoni system, because white has grip over these light squares here, so it's quite difficult to find a good way to develop the dark square bishop. So what often happens is that white here plays h3 like it happened in the game, and then the bishop is traded for this knight on f3. By trading, black has more influence on these dark squares, e5 and d4, because the knight on f3 is gone. Now I played rook to e8, bishop f4, targeting the weakest pawn of this small chain of black, d6. I played now queen to c7, and that looks at first sight a bit strange to place the queen on the same diagonals as the bishop, but the thing is that there is no way for white to attack this d6 pawn a second time, because the knight cannot go to b5 to attack it here, for example, and so that's why queen to c7 is a very good playable move. And the idea is to keep the d7 square free for the knight, and eventually advance the c pawn to c4, supported by the queen, and maybe later even knight to c5 in some variations. We see this maneuver. Now white played a5, and I played knight to d7. He continued with rook f to c1, so placing this rook on the c file, controlling maybe later c4, and preventing also eventually fc4 by black. Knight to e5, attacking queen and bishop, the queen went to e2, and now I exchanged here this knight for the bishop and rerouted my knight to this beautiful square e5. Rook a4 was played here, and now I made a wrong decision actually. I played b5 here, and I thought that after a takes b, en passant, queen takes b, that then my pressure on b2 would be strong. I could attack this pawn, but I didn't consider that the chances of white to attack my a pawn are probably stronger. So I got into trouble because of this this decision of playing b5. Instead of b5, another option would be to play rook a to c1, just calmly continuing, and after queen to g3, attacking the d6 pawn, then knight to e5 to block this attack. So a more slow approach would be perhaps better. So now let's go back to the game. After rook to a4, I played a b5. He took on b6, queen takes b6, now queen to c2, knight to e5, rook c to a1. So now white is starting to put more pressure on a6. Rook e to b8 was my move, trying to put pressure on his b pawn, and now knight to d1. And when he played this, I took here really a long time to think, because I was thinking that white's plan is to go with this knight to e3, then exchange the knight on e5, and after that go with this knight to c4, where it will be attacking my queen and attacking the bishop that has appeared now on e5, or pawn if I retake with the d pawn. So this looks very good for white. His pieces suddenly are, well, not suddenly, all his pieces are simply working together very well this way. So I thought, well, how can I prevent this? And I didn't find any way to prevent this maneuver, knight e3, knight c4. So what I did is I played queen to b5. He answered rook to a5, attacking my queen, so I went back to b6, and I was at this point feeling a bit frustrated because I didn't find a good plan for black. Now queen to e2 was played, attacking the a6 pawn once more. I played c4, and that's the only move that I found to block this attack on the a6 pawn. Now he took on e5, I took back with the bishop, and he took this pawn on c4, and I took the b2 pawn. So we got this position where the material is equal, but my a6 pawn is very weak. It took my bishop, I took again, and here he didn't take on a6. My plan was that if he takes on a6, let's say rook takes a6, my plan was to take here on a1. After rook takes queen, rook takes rook, king to h2, then I wanted to play rook back to the back rank, and if queen c6, defend my pawn. And my idea was to use the other rook to attack the queen and try to hold this position. So not using the rooks to attack on the 7th rank, on the second rank here, trying to attack the king, because the attack of the queen against d6 is much faster. So this was my idea, and this was seen by my opponent, and that's why he didn't take on a6. He played rook 5 to a2, and then I kept my queen on this diagonal to be able to take on a1 in case that he takes on a6. Rook to f1 was played now here, and I found that a weak move because it looks very slow. Well, the thing is, he wants to prepare f4 now, so he's trying to get some space on the other side. I played rook to c8, queen to e2, now a5, and here I offered my opponent a draw. Because now that my pawn has advanced to a5, it's not an easy target. He thought for a while, and then he decided to refuse my draw offer. He played king to h1. Now I played rook to e8, and here he made a mistake. He actually took his rook from a2 in his hand, and he placed it on a4, and at the moment that he did that, he held the rook on his hand, and he didn't release it, and he actually probably saw at that moment that this was a blunder. But he already had touched the rook, so he had to make a move with his rook. So he released it, and then I played immediately queen takes d5, because after e takes d, I take on a2, and I have won a pawn. So now suddenly I'm the one who has the winning chances. We can continue with rook to b1. I took on f2. He went to b5 to capture my a pawn and defend his d5 pawn. King to g7. Rook to b6, attacking my d6 pawn. I decided to defend this pawn, although the rook on f6 doesn't have much space to move. But king to h2, after the g5, now I can place later the rook on g6 and advance my f pawn maybe, or my h pawn. The game continues. King to g3, h5, rook b5, king g6. He took now my a pawn. I trade a pair of rooks, and as you can see, the white king cannot come close to the center because of this rook on the f file. So I gave a check here on h4. White cannot go to g4 because then rook to f4 is checkmate. So he must go back to the corner, and I played king to f5. After g3, I played king to e5, attacking his d5 pawn, and he took here on h4. I took back, and after king g2 I played rook to f4, and here he resigned because it's impossible to prevent me from capturing this other pawn, and it's impossible for him to come closer with his king. So actually the most safe way to win this with black would be, for example, to first advance the f pawn to f5 and then later go for the capture of this d5 pawn. So that was the game that I played in the second round, and well, leave your comments on YouTube, and I'll see you next time. I'll make a video of my last round game next Friday.